Welcome back, everybody, to the newest episode of the penpodcast.com. I'm your host, Matthew Harms, founder of Pen for Hire, where we offer premier ghostwriting and author coaching services, and the host of the Pen Podcast, where we sit with writers, authors, writing industry professionals, subject matter experts, and all around interesting people. Today, we have the pleasure of getting a repeat guest who was on the podcast probably one or two seasons ago, maybe 100 or so episodes ago, and has been up to such amazing things. We had to bring her back. So everyone, today we have Beth Sanborn. Beth, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much for having me back.
It is my pleasure. Looking forward to it because as I kind of just said I wouldn't steal your thunder, I started to steal your thunder. When did that become a tongue twister? Tell everyone a little bit about yourself for those who didn't see the first podcast. And since you and I both forgot it already, we'll just pretend this is the first one.
Right. Yeah, it's so nice to meet you. Um, so I always knew that I wanted to help people. I just didn't know in what capacity it was going to turn itself out to. So oddly enough, my professional venture led me into policing. So I spent my entire adult life as a police officer, 26 years, in fact. Super excited by that. And I realized that policing wasn't necessarily about helping people. It was a lot of bureaucracy and red tape and check boxes. And it wasn't until the end of 2014 that I had this like fundamental change in my professional career. I had been married, still unmarried, same husband, two kids. We just celebrated our 25th anniversary, in fact.
In case he's listening, you good cover.
Right? Yeah, thank you so much. Woo. Um, but at the end of 2014, my lieutenant sent me a text message on one of my days off, and he said, "Hey, the school district is thinking about starting this position, school resource officer. I don't really know what it entails, but I think it would be a really good fit for you and for the department and for the school. Oh, and by the way, the hours are Monday to Friday, 7 to 3. Are you interested?" And I answered with a resounding yes and way more exclamation points than any grown woman should ever respond to her boss. But that moment really changed my life as to who I am as a person, as a professional, as a wife, as a mother, really just as a community member. And once I started in the schools working with students as a police officer, as their school resource officer in January of 2015, I guess it was. Wow. Um, I realized that that was when I truly had the ability to positively impact a life with every single interaction that I had. I got to be that role model. I got to serve as law enforcement where I could keep my kiddos safe. And I got this extraordinary opportunity to teach, to be a public safety educator and talk about real world implications and real world skills. And I never looked back. I realized that was my niche. That was where I was meant to be, where I could do the most good. So, in order to provide that service to the highest level to my kids, I realized I could do so much more and better. I went back to school. I earned my doctorate in public administration, which is anything and everything government, just as exciting as it sounds. It's terrible, in fact. But I earned my doctorate in public administration. I went back to my schools. I got involved in PASRO, the Pennsylvania Association of School Resource Officers, where I currently serve as the president. And it doesn't seem like my term is ending anytime soon. It seems like folks are pleased with my work. And then I became an instructor for NASRO, the National Association of School Resource Officers. So I get to travel the country talking about a benchmark school resource officer and how to provide the best level of service for our kids and our schools and our communities so that we can have safe kids and safer schools.
Wow. Um, so you said a bunch of things, but I kind of want to I'll jump back to them. Does this mean, and I know the answer to this, so I'm sorry, but does this mean that you have left your position in the school to take on these more leadership positions?
Yes, but the two aren't necessarily related. I realized that after 26 years, it was time to hang up my gun belt and I was ready to retire, mostly because my pension was about to kick in. Um, but it was time. I was getting older, had been doing it for a while. Um, so it was time to hang up the gun belt and retire. However, I don't retire well. In fact, it's something that I'm really, really bad at. So I assumed the role after retiring from law enforcement. I am now a civilian, although it's funny because the one thing that you may be able to read on my shirt is that it says law enforcement right here. So when I retired from policing, I am a civilian now, but I work for my county in Pennsylvania, Montgomery County, and I am the Montgomery County School Safety Coordinator, which means instead of working as a school resource officer in one school district, I now serve as the coordinator for 22 public school districts and about 435 private schools, religious schools, daycares, and other institutions. So I get to set the tone and the standards and keep people serving their kiddos right in more than just one school district.
So I've got to know, you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast the motivation behind leaving traditional policing to get into the educational environment. Part of it was the bureaucracy of policing. So how are you dealing now with being on the administration side of education? I'm sure there's no bureaucracy there.
It can be tough. It can be really, really tough. As it turns out, I know this is going to be a huge shock to people, but there are a lot of egos in every industry. So I make a few things very, very clear upon my first meeting with folks. And it's that I play very well in the sandbox together. And I will always use education or playgrounds phrases just to remind ourselves who we are, what we're doing, and who's in our best interest. And it's the kids. I have always been of the mindset in that we are stronger together and we work better together, and that teams are much stronger than individuals. So if I have something, if I have a resource, if I have a skill, I want to share the wealth so that we can work together and improve that safety net, which is something that I realized when being a uniformed police officer working in a school district, police officers are kind of accustomed to calling the shots and setting the rules. But in the school environment, school administration is used to calling the shots and making the rules. So we are two very strong entities, and working together shouldn't be a really substantial adversarial relationship. We should be increasing and enhancing that safety net so that we're doing better by our kids, which means educating them better, which means supporting them better, which means helping them become healthier, more productive, successful adults when they leave the school environment.
Man, it would be nice if someone wrote a book about something like that.
Oh, 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 call on me.
Beth,
So, listen, I told you I don't retire well, and I tend to keep myself busy. This is the clearest that my whiteboard behind me has been pretty much ever. So while I don't want to spend too much time talking about my first book, I really do think that it helps to set the stage for the second book. So my first book was The Missing Piece, Your School Resource Officer as an Ally in Parenting. And if you're unfamiliar with the role of the school resource officer, the benchmark school resource officer serves three essential functions in no particular order. We are informal mentors and counselors. We are law enforcement officers, and we are public safety educators, which means that as informal mentors and counselors, we get the luxury of time with our students and get to encounter them over the course of 180 school days, give or take. And that's just in a single year, which means we get to learn about our students, their names, their passions, and how they define success. As a law enforcement officer, I wore a formal traditional police uniform, and initially, that may have been jarring for some folks to see that in the school environment, but it didn't take them very long to look past that uniform and to see my smile, to see how I treated students, to see how I treated them as individuals and was there to be a support system, and that I wasn't there to criminalize every little dumb thing that kids do, because, I mean, like kids do dumb things. They're supposed to. Like, that's how you learn not to repeat those dumb things. And as I mentioned before about being a public safety educator, I could go in and teach lessons or just be parts of lessons or just talk about current events and really fun things. So I wanted to educate folks on the position of the school resource officer so they didn't just have this misconception that it's just this big bad lone wolf police officer patrolling the halls, smacking a nightstick into a locker, demanding hall passes and arresting kids because they stole a pack of Oreos from the cafeteria. That couldn't be further from the truth. So that kind of sets the stage for a little bit of introduction into who we are and how we're trained and what our ideology is. And really the one thing that doesn't get enough publicity is how we interact with our students, and then more so how our students interact with us. Because when they feel secure and when they feel supported and when they feel loved, totally appropriately, mind you, those relationships get to be really strong. So the one thing I noticed over the course of time working in my schools was that despite the fact that we had a good relationship with the school administration and with the school staff, there were still conflicts that we had. And there were students who exhibited problematic behaviors, oftentimes time and time and time and time and time and time again. And it was like, well, what do we do? You know, you can try a couple interventions, and if that doesn't work, you try something else. And if that doesn't work, maybe then you try something else. But when you're still faced with these difficulties, what I didn't want to have happen was this argument between the school saying, well, you should just arrest the kid, and the school resource officer saying, well, you should just suspend the kid. So we're fighting when it's obvious that this kiddo who's exhibiting these problematic behaviors just needs help, whether it's because of trauma, whether it's because of adverse childhood experiences, whether it's addiction, whether it's adolescence. There are a whole host of different issues that could be the root causes of problematic behaviors. So we're trained to look at the why behind the behavior, not just the behavior themselves. And as we're working on school safety and we're trying to enhance the safety network, the one thing I noticed was that we in law enforcement were tasking our administrators and our school staff with so many law enforcement-esque duties. So behavioral threat assessment and threat management, run, hide, fight, active shooter drills. So we as law enforcement were putting more and more on the plates of our already tasked school staff. And I thought, you know what? How cool would it be if we in the law enforcement realm took on some of that onus to understand what schools can and can't do, what their obligations are, what their limitations are, and really started with a level set so that we could walk into the school environment, not just with our policing mind, but also with an education mind, and start to take on some of that burden to show that we are really working together.
I love that you ended on that part because one of my notes here was the audience of your book, right? It's almost equal parts student, parent, law enforcement professional, because depending on the training, the school district, like here in New York City, I don't want to make a sweeping generalization, but you really can't tell the difference between the actual police and the school safety police.
Which is funny because the title of the second book is Piecing It All Together: School Resource Officers as Allies in Education. You're right. The audience is different, and this is a bit more of a technical, a bit more technical than the first book, which was more anecdotal and shared more stories and ideology, whereas this talks a little bit of the nitty-gritty of the K to 12 environment. Because oftentimes I feel like there's this misconception, whether it's a misconception from parents or students or outsiders or anyone who isn't intimately aware of the K to 12 environment, for what schools have the ability to do and what their obligations are. There are so many different facets, much like I feel pretty comfortable in saying that anyone listening to this, regardless of the industry in which you work, there are intricacies which only you're aware of. and someone who isn't a part of that industry has no idea. So why not shed some light in it? Because we all, in some way or another, are related to the K to 12 environment, whether it's because we went through a K to 12 environment, whether it's because we have family members, our own children, or students with which we're responsible for. Why shouldn't we want to learn about what the abilities and the limitations are?
And at some point, no matter how you slice it, kids in the K to 12 environment today are in some way, shape, or form going to be serving us and supporting us as we get older.
Yeah. So let's do right by them so that they can become healthy, successful, and productive.
Yes, and then return the favor to us when we need their help.
Yes, please.
So what has been kind of the reception from your let's start with your professional industry and associations for you having taken the time and initiative, partly through your retirement, I might add, for the second book, because people who retire always want to spend the beginning of their retirement writing a book about what they do.
Yeah, yeah. I would say the reception has been spectacular. Please know that this comes from a very good place in my heart. It's a very tongue-in-cheek kind of joke, but I like to say that educators are snobs. Again, I say that out of love. But when I was school resource officer, I always had a seat at the table when it came to administration and school staff. And when I went back to school and I earned my doctorate and I suddenly had those letters after my name, well, before my name, after my name, whichever way you want to phrase it, I noticed that my seat was still there at the table, but now I had a voice to go along with it. And I was like, oh, I see how y'all are. Y'all are snobs because my dedication hadn't changed from the day before. It was just the letters associated with my name. And I realized that when you really get down to it and you focus on the people and the relationships, we are there for the right reason. We are there for the success of our kids, the health of our communities. So when we work together, now I just have the ability with the years of experience, with the education, the with the extracurricular activities that I engage in, it's opening so many doors. When I talk with kids and I discuss my career and ways to become successful and how to get recognized and noticed, a, a piece of advice I offer is make yourself stand out for the better. Always volunteer. If something needs to be done, how can I help? What can I do to make your day better? What can I take off of your plate? Be reliable and dependable and follow up. It's okay not to know the answer to something as long as you can find it and then get back to people with it. Respond to emails, return text messages and voice calls. And by doing these things and really establishing myself as being invested 100% in the world of school safety, I find that folks are comfortable reaching out to me. I share my cell phone number with anyone and everyone who cares to know it. My email address, I am incredibly accessible because when I tell you that I am willing to help you, if my actions don't reflect those words, I will immediately burn that bridge and you'll know never to trust me again. And my reputation and your school and our kids deserve better.
I love that. And I mean, you started to touch on something I didn't even think about, but that seat at the table, adding the letters. What has now, being a two-time published author, has that added any additional kind of credibility beyond those letters? Because you can only get so many letters at some point, right?
That's true. But you know what? I'm about to add 4 extra letters coming up soon. Those extra letters are TEDx. I'm going to be traveling to, I know I'm so excited. I'm going to
I
be
did not know this, so that
surprised.
you
Wait,
managed to
wait.
surprise me.
Yes, so August 24th, I am going to be presenting at TEDx Cherry Creek High School in Colorado. I'm going to be speaking about school resource officers. A little spoiler, I'm not giving away anything else. Although SRO, school resource officers, is not in the title, but it's about transforming school safety. I am incredibly excited. And what makes it even better, here's a little bit of a humble brag for a moment. Before I go to Colorado for my TEDx, I will be flying directly in from London because I will be speaking at Cambridge University the week before. So I will be speaking at Cambridge about school safety and school resource officers, and then immediately jet setting away to go to Colorado for my TEDx. I have such a big summer.
Wow.
Yes. Yes. So having that brand, having these books, having something to show that I am an expert, that by the way, just having the publication isn't enough. It's not enough. It would have been enough if that was all I cared about. However, I want to use these as tools to help increase the spread of my brand, my credibility, my loyalty and devotion. I think the one thing that you'll learn about me, if you haven't learned yet, is that I'm incredibly loyal. I love people. I value their stories and what they offer. And this is just another way that I can help build relationships and communicate, collaborate. Like relationships are just so very important.
I mean, I have to say, like, you are the embodiment of what I tell people when they mention that they're thinking of writing a book. And the first things that come out of their mouth are, will it be a bestseller? All of this. And my answer is always, if no one, you could write the best book in the world, but if no one reads it, if you don't do anything to get it out there and show the value it provides, it's not going to do anything. And you are literally on the perfect side of that example of, I have the books, just having the books is great for you. You can say I'm a two-time published author, but that's not good enough because you want to do more.
Oh, by the way, could you change that to a two-time best-selling author? Because I thank you.
Oh,
Thank you,
and so I know I just poo-pooed the bestseller, but when you can add that on top of going to London to speak and top of becoming a TEDx, yeah, then it just gets better and better. But the title by itself with no value, I mean, I would rather be impacting lives across the world than having the bestseller. When you can put the two together, you're killing it.
It's true. And again, it does come down to relationships. So when it was time for sales, I asked anyone and everyone that I had contact with, like, hey, this is coming out. And by the way, this is completely applicable to our industry. But listen, here's a little spoiler. Not everyone that I talk to is involved in school safety. I talk to my next door neighbors and I have family members, and they bought copies of books because they wanted to support me. And they said, you know, I bought a copy of your book. I haven't read it yet. But I'm getting around to it. I was like, listen, you bought it. Like you can use it to prop up your television stand. This you can buy three more copies and put it underneath your table and like use it to slide furniture. I don't really care. You bought it already. Again, I say that tongue in cheek. But writing the book is one thing. That is a process. Marketing and selling the book is an entirely different beast. But using that information to do good out in the world is another third piece. So there are so many different facets to it. And ultimately, it's about being a good person. It's about spreading the wealth and working together to make the world a better place. Oh my God, that sounds so cheesy.
But you know what? We need more of that cheese because it's that intangible, right? You don't know the person who bought your book to support you. Maybe they don't have any vested interest in school safety, but they may know people. Everyone knows someone who has kids. Everyone knows somebody who goes to school, right? Whether you do or the person the book doesn't, it's not like what's that old TV show gets like Inspector Gadget. It doesn't self-destruct. That that book is gonna live out there, so it's gonna wind up in the hands of somebody who's gonna finally one day say, I never would have bought this, but since it's propping up my neighbor's coffee table, it caught my eye. They they may spill the coffee to take it out and read it.
Right, which I mean, actually, which brings up a really good point. If one of your listeners wants a copy of the book, have them reach out to me, and I would be happy to send them one. Because again, it might not be a genre that you search for, But I think if you have any interest in learning really about anything, it's just a new industry, I would be happy to send a book to somebody.
And I can safely say whether you think you need it or not, it's enlightening. I have kids in school, and I did not know 95% of everything that goes on behind the scenes. That like I knew the word bureaucracy, I knew things don't just change easily, but to really get such a granular um, and easy to read explanation as to all of these different things that impact every decision. I really think it's enlightening for anyone that may know a school age child.
It's true. It's true. We're in this together, and the K to 12 environment is going to be there, and our kids are always going to need that support. Not every kid needs the same thing at any given time. Everybody might need something different, and that was not grammatically correct, but that's okay because the intent came across, and that it's figuring out what that kiddo needs to be successful, and it's going to be different each and every time. And I wouldn't change it for anything. I love what I got to do, and I love what I am getting to do, and I love what I will do next.
I love it. We're getting close to time, so I'm gonna throw out a shameless plug of something I saw on social media. Your book was featured somewhere pretty prominent, wasn't it?
So I got a chance to, well, there could be a couple answers to that. Are you referring to when it was on the NASDAQ billboard in Times Square?
As a New Yorker, I don't think it gets any more prominent than that. But if there's something I'm
Okay.
missing that was bigger than that, by all
Okay,
means.
no, but I will also mention that Specialized Training Services is also now carrying my book. They're very big in the security industry, and they have a tremendous number of threat assessment trainings and very popular books. They're supported by ASIS, which in the threat assessment and the security world is a large acronym. But yes, I did get the opportunity to be on the NASDAQ billboard in Times Square, and that was a very, very exciting opportunity. I told you, man, this has been a very big summer, and I'm excited to see what's next. Actually, I have one more professional goal, and I would love to know if at some point I can check it off my list. But my last professional goal is to make it to the White House to advocate for school resource officers. And if I don't manifest it out into the world, then there's a good likelihood it never happens. But by putting it out there, I feel like I'm getting one step closer, even if it's just a teeny tiny step.
I mean, to be at this point of your career and only have one more professional goal means you probably either had zero before, which I know is not true, or a pretty good track record of checking them off. So,
I tend to set a goal, work towards it, and achieve it, which is really funny because with this whole TEDx process, I was struggling to really hone down every word and tone because I'm not used to struggling at things. But this is a very new skill set that I'm learning, and I'm very excited for August 24th in Parker, Colorado at Cherry Springs High School.
well, we're going to make sure that we get all of if you haven't already sent it to us before we post this, please get us that information so we can advertise it. We can promote that upcoming engagement. And in the last couple of moments here, please, I know you said you'd send people a book, and I'll give the show information after, but also tell them where they can buy it because come on, people, support our guests, support authors, people who have invested hours, hundreds of hours of their time to write these books, share their expertise, their decades of experience. If you truly can't afford it or know someone that can't afford it, we'll get you Beth's information for a free copy. But otherwise, Beth, please tell them where they can buy your book and support you.
Absolutely. Please visit me on Amazon.com. You can either search me up by Dr. Beth J. Sanborn, Sanborn. Don't you go adding any extra letters to my name and making me more fancy than I am. You can look up The Missing Piece, Your School Resource Officer is an Ally in Parenting, or Piecing It Together, School Resource Officers as Allies in Education.
Incredible. And as I mentioned, for those of you who want to try to take the back road, you can go through me here. You can email me, matt@penforhirenyc.com. Head over to www.penforhirenyc.com. Drop a comment in the show notes. We always take care of those and respond. And want to thank you all for tuning in this time, and to Dr. Beth Sanborn for taking the time out of her day and her busy summer schedule to share everything she's up with here at the Penn Podcast. We will catch you all in the next episode. And Beth, thank you again so much.
Thank you.
It has been a pleasure.